Greetings, one and all. Welcome back to another episode of the Icing on the Skate podcast. Joining me again is that geezer we can't seem to get rid of, Mr. Chris Gadsby. I've got to try and insult you somehow.
Every single week to start the
I
episode.
think it's become a bit of a tradition now.
It has a bit, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
episode 10, we've hit double digits, Chrissy old boy.
I know.
God, we're doing all right at this, aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah, nice.
So we've been taking a look at the news that's been taking place this week throughout the hockey world, and we found some. We're going to talk about some of the obvious stuff, for sure. We're also going to talk about some really, really interesting stories. I feel like Chris and I, we like to discuss some of the weird and wacky stuff in the hockey world as well. I think that we've said that kind of sets us apart. Yeah, exactly. Like, if we just talk about the stuff that every other podcast talks about, then we're not going to be interesting. So, let's start, I think, Chris, like we always do, with your lovely reading of the scores that have taken place in the Elite League this week. So, go for it, my friend.
Okay, Wednesday the 7th, of my calendar's on the right month.
You've got on the right month.
So, starting on Wednesday, it was Cardiff 4-5-5 after overtime.
That sounded like a really good game.
It did, didn't it? Moving on to Friday, Manchester 4, Milton Keynes 3. Saturday, Sheffield 5, Guildford 6. That was a cracking game.
Yeah, that sounded like an awesome game.
It was. Glasgow 5, Coventry 4. That was also after only 26 seconds of overtime in Glasgow. Milton Keynes 2, Cardiff 4, Nottingham 0, Belfast 4.
Which Chris went to go and watch.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit. 5-3, Manchester 2. And then on Sunday, Dundee 1, Sheffield 6, Coventry 2, Glasgow 4. Cardiff 1, Belfast 8, and Guildford 1, Nottingham 4.
So, most of the teams in the league kind of doing their job, although some very surprising results, and I think especially the Cardiff-Belfast game. Belfast had a very, very good week.
See, I was angry after the Panthers game, and then when I saw what Belfast did to Cardiff, I was like, right, Belfast must just be on it.
Yeah, they're on fire at the moment. Like, but I mean, Cardiff have had 2 pretty rough weeks then recently, haven't they? Yeah. They're starting to cool off a little bit. I don't expect that to continue. I expect them to have a really good season still. I think everybody does, and especially with the addition of a player that we're going to talk about in a bit more depth later. But I think that 8-1 Belfast game, that has got to be crazy. I think it is also, before I forget, important to point out, Free Sports this week is showing their live game of the Elite League. It's Milton Keynes against Glasgow. It's on Wednesday at 7 p.m, I believe, is when the coverage starts. I think face-off 7:30. I'm not sure on that. Don't quote me on it. Go look it up for yourselves. But essentially, it's Pete Russell playing his old team in the Elite League for the first time, I believe, since he joined Glasgow. So we'll see how those two teams play, or his first league game against his opponent. So that seems pretty good. I'm definitely going to be tuning in to watch it. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great game. So where does that put us in terms of the standings, Chris?
Okay, so the standings, the Belfast Giants top the table.
Not surprised.
On 30 points. They're 4 points clear of the 5 Flyers, but 5 do have 2 games in hand, so they could tie it at the top. Nottingham are in 3rd. They've got 24 points, but they've still played more than anybody else. Cardiff are in 4th on 21 points, but they have 5 in hand over Nottingham. So they could climb as high as 31. The important thing to talk about is that Cardiff only have 4 games in hand over Belfast, and therefore Belfast are outright leaders.
Yeah, that's
because even if Cardiff win all theirs, they only get to 29.
Okay,
Guildford in 5th on 18, as are Coventry in 6th with the same games played on 15. Glasgow in 7th on 16 points, alongside Sheffield in 8th, also on 16 points, but Sheffield have played 4 games more. And then in 9th, just outside the playoffs, are Manchester with 15 points, Dundee in 10th, and the foot of the table, that's on 11 points, sorry, and at the foot of the table, Milton Keynes on 8 points.
Yeah, so I definitely think that Cardiff and Guildford will, and probably Coventry, will jump over Nottingham. Once all the games in hand played and everything like that. The Belfast Giants on a 7-game winning streak. That's crazy. I mean,
77 goals for in 19 games.
That they're getting some good scoring there. They brought in some good players this off-season, and they are paying that team dividends. Also, the Guildford Flames, before their loss against Nottingham yesterday, they were on a 7-game winning streak in the league as well. So they're a team to watch out for, but we talk about that all the time, every week on this.
Yeah.
Because I think they're such a brilliant franchise so far in the first 2 years of their EIHL competition. But yeah, I think it's more of the same, really, in the league, isn't it? I think once all the games are played, the top of the table is going to be really close.
Yeah, it's going to, I mean, in theory, if you take everyone up to 20 games, you'd have Belfast and Fife on 32, Cardiff on 31. I mean, that's assuming they will win all their games, of course.
Exactly, yeah.
Cardiff on 31. Then you'd have Guildford and Coventry on 28. Yeah. So you'd have, 5 teams within 4 points of each other?
Yeah, exactly. Like, and we've been saying since the beginning of the season how competitive this season was going to be and how exciting it was going to be, the fact that it's so competitive. I love it. I think it's great. Like, we don't know. Usually at this kind of... once we get to about Christmas, we usually know, like, okay, there's going to be a couple of teams in it, but, like, for example, for the last few seasons, by Christmas, Cardiff is probably going to be the team that gets it. This season, there's no idea. Of course, we'll have to wait until Christmas. We're still about a month and a half away from Christmas, so about 5 weeks or so, 5-6 weeks. But I think this is turning out to be one of the most competitive seasons, if not the most competitive season in Elite League history, which I think is great. Yeah. I think
it's good because it will make people watch the league.
Exactly, yeah.
Because they don't know what's going to happen.
Definitely. People will be more interested in watching what's going on. And of course, we've got Ben in the chat who's very upset with Cardiff's recent struggles. He said
they've gone from 40 to 14 goals to 62 and 41.
Yeah, so they let in
conceding
a lot
8
of
to Belfast in your own barn.
Yeah, I mean, that... And like many have said on this podcast, and we've said it many times, Cardiff is not an easy team to play at home.
No, it's really... I mean, when I was down at university in Cardiff, I went to every Panthers away game, and it was not easy.
Yeah, exactly. And to put up 8 in somebody else's arena is a really good job. So, yeah, it's kind of more of the same in terms of the standings, but we're starting to see, like with every week, a slightly bigger divide. I really don't like it that some teams have played 5 less games than others. Like, that just really irritates me. Like, 1 or 2 games difference, yeah, I get it, but... to have like Nottingham on 20 points and or Nottingham on 20 games played and Cardiff and Guildford and Glasgow on 15, it's just a bit annoying because that brings into the Challenge Cup.
It is,
and all of that stuff.
And it does come into the Challenge Cup. Obviously, it's more difficult. It's actually more difficult for your arena teams because they're in arenas, which means they don't get the ice all the time.
Yeah,
like Cardiff and their arena, they have their ice.
Yeah, and they can use it whenever they want.
Yeah, you don't have Disney on Ice and Blue Planet Live.
And Andre Rieu.
Like you have at the Most Point Arena. So the Panthers have got to kind of take what ice they can get, which means that if they have a load of ice availability right at the start of the season, they've got to take it.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which is why you have this game difference.
Which, of course, feeds into the whole, because it's not the most popular sport, they can't really dictate over higher paying companies that want to put on a show there.
If you think about it, I mean, Panthers are 20 quid a ticket?
Yeah.
And it holds 7,500.
Yeah.
I mean, I bought tickets for Russell Howard there on Thursday, and that's 40 quid a ticket, and you can get 10,000 in. So they're making a lot more for these other events, which is why they get the preference.
Yeah, they're going to be prioritised always. So yeah, that's what took place in the Elite League this last week. Like we said, we've got the Milton Keynes and Glasgow game coming up on Free Sports. I'm really looking forward to that. I love watching the Elite League action on the TV, and not having to pay 10 quid each time to watch it. And we'll actually have decent commentators, which is nice.
It's just for anyone on Free Sports on Freeview. It's moving to channel 64.
64. So. You might need to retune it or update your... You are making us look so old with that reference to 64 Zulane. The nostalgia.
I know.
So, we move swiftly on from the Elite League to the Challenge Cup. So, we talked about it a lot last week.
We did.
The seedings took place on one of the most disorganized webcasts I've seen.
Oh, it was so bad, wasn't it?
I think it was the first proper thing from the new media manager, and I've got to say,
for starters, it was about 10 minutes late.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Then the camera had a message pop up.
Yeah, in Czech as well. It wasn't even in English, so I couldn't read what it said. I didn't understand what it was saying, which I found equally as funny. So the live draw took place at about 12:15 in the afternoon on the Tuesday.
Yep.
Chris and I were both sitting there going, is it going to happen? What's going on?
Yeah, we got to the point where we're like, have they pre-recorded this and they're going to put it out and then claim they had technical difficulties? Or
Yeah, exactly. So they did the draw. The media manager, it was very interesting. He seemed very awkward and very nervous the whole way through. But anyway, that's not the point. I mean, it's his first job. He was with some of the big managers in the league. It's not an easy baptism of fire, you know. So,
no.
The drawing took place, of course. Belfast got to pick first, Cardiff second. Who was next?
Nottingham third, and then Guildford got whoever was left. Exactly. And basically, we called it.
Yeah, so essentially, we could have talked at length about this, but essentially we got it 100% right.
We got it spot on, yeah.
Like we thought we would. I mean, it makes sense for Belfast to take the weakest opponent out of the lot as the number 1 seed. They took Dundee. Cardiff then took the second weakest in Glasgow. Nottingham, they had the choice of Manchester or Sheffield, and they chose Manchester. Well, as Gary Moran specifically pointed out on the webcast, Rick Chernemaz chose Manchester.
Yeah.
It wasn't him that chose it. It was Rick Chernemaz. And I love how he dodged that question afterwards by Luke Fisher. Just so why have you chosen them? Well, you'd have to ask Rick Chernemaz. It's just answer the question, man. Come on.
Yeah.
Like he's already had a shit enough time. Help the man out.
What he doesn't want, what Gary Moran doesn't want to do is go, yeah, well, I think Manchester are worse than Sheffield, and then Manchester to go and put 6 past us in the first leg or something.
Wouldn't surprise me.
No.
And then they were about to end the stream there, and then Luke Fisher came back on and said, "Oh, by the way, Guildford and Sheffield is also taking place as well." So
yeah,
we pretty much got it 100% right.
Yes.
I don't have the dates of all of the games.
I do.
Oh, perfect, Chris, go for it.
I do. You're not going to like this. You're not going to like this either, because some fixtures are completed before others have started.
Oh, great.
So there aren't any until the end of November now.
Right.
So the 28th of November. You've got Dundee, Belfast, and Glasgow, Cardiff. So Belfast and Cardiff have both elected for second leg home.
Okay, yep, I understand the reasoning behind that. Yep.
In fact, actually, all the choices have gone for second leg home.
Okay, I think I might try and get down to the Nottingham game. When is the Nottingham game? I know I'm jumping a little bit ahead.
Nottingham at home?
Yeah.
It's the 11th of December.
I might try and get down to see that.
So you've got Dundee, Belfast, Glasgow, Cardiff on the 28th of November. The 4th of December. The 4th of December, you've got Manchester, Nottingham.
In Manchester.
That's going to be a tough game. 11th of December, you've got the second leg of Belfast, Dundee.
Okay.
And second leg of Nottingham, Manchester.
Okay.
Then on the 12th of December, you've got the first leg, Sheffield, Guildford.
Well, they're starting theirs late. Jesus.
Yep.
All right, fair enough.
I think, again, it's ice availability.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
The 14th of December, it's Cardiff, Glasgow.
Their second leg, yep.
Yep, and then the 19th of December, it's Guildford, Sheffield.
So we have to wait a month. Well, we've got to wait 5 weeks until all of the Challenge Cup.
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, the Challenge Cup quarterfinals are going over 3 weeks.
Talk about dragging it out, though.
And then the semi-finals they're seeded.
Right.
So, based on the original seedings, 1 to 8, the highest seed in the semi-finals, say it's Belfast in 1.
Okay.
Say 1, 2, 3, and 4 go through, for example.
Yeah, which could very much be an eventuality in this scenario.
Belfast would play Guildford because Belfast were first and Guildford were 4th.
Okay.
And Cardiff would play Nottingham 2nd and 3rd.
I wouldn't mind that.
Equally, for example, I mean, if Sheffield beat Guildford, then it'd be Belfast 1, Sheffield 5.
Yeah.
And it'd be top versus bottom. Then it's a standard kind of that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Common stuff. Okay, perfect. Yeah. So, yeah, Challenge Cup draw. We got it right. Nothing else to see there. So, perfect. Now we move on to a couple of interesting bits of news from the EIHL and the British hockey world in general. So I think we'll start with Tomo. So, for those of you who don't know, or for those of you who have forgotten, Tomo, ex-Sheffield Steelers coach and general manager, left the club several weeks ago after he had won just... You're right there, Chris, yeah?
Yeah, water went down too quickly.
Right. After Tomo had won just 2 games of their opening 17, which is really not good.
Yeah.
Of course, he'd brought them however many trophies. It turns out that Paul Thompson has found a new job, which I'm glad. I'm really happy that Tomo has found new employment. However, it's not in Britain. It's actually in a league that is, I mean, definitely, you could say arguably, but I think definitely better than the Elite League. He has found a job in the German DEL. So yes, I've got an article from the Yorkshire Post, written by Phil Harrison. I'll just read you a bit of it if you want. So, Coach Paul Thompson's previous experience of European club hockey will help him adapt quickly to life in the DEL. So he has signed with the Schweinega Wild Wings. He signed with them on Thursday last week, making him the first British person to ever coach at the highest level in Germany. So that's going to be very, very interesting. I really hope that he does well. I think...
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, go for it.
Schweinega are in the bottom of the league.
Right, okay.
They've played 17, only got 7 points. Okay. They're 5 points off the next place team. They're already 15 points off the playoffs.
Okay.
So it is, that's the bottom tier of the playoffs as well.
So like we mentioned with John Stevens being fired last week, how there's not too much room to make up at the moment, and it was the right time to make that move. This is kind of like the second half of that. It was the right time to fire their previous coach. They've brought in Paul Thompson. He's not got that far to go.
No, I mean, they won in overtime on the opening night.
Okay.
And then they went on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 game losing streak.
Oh, that's rough.
With one overtime loss in there. Then they won 5-3. And then they've gone on a 4-game losing streak again with an overtime loss. So it's not gone particularly well for them at the start of this season. But I mean, I don't know how many do they play in the DEL? I mean, there's 14 in the.
If there's 14, I would imagine they play like 55, 60 games, maybe
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the DEL is obviously seen as a better league than the Elite League. They have some solid players in that league. I mean, the likes of Leon Draisaitl have come out of Germany, so there's several NHL players that have come from Germany and played in the DEL at least one point in their career. So, Germany's kind of one of those smaller markets for hockey compared to the bigger stage, but definitely bigger than us.
Definitely,
with the Elite League, and they're doing. I mean, like. What is it? Schweinega, they don't really have much to lose with a pickup like this, because if it doesn't go well, they get rid of him at the end of the season and they find another coach. If it goes well, then they keep him, and hopefully that carries on into a more successful season next year. So
I mean, we know how good the German teams can be in in Europe. We've seen who in the Champions Hockey League. You've got Munchen and that sort of Red Bull Munchen. There's good teams in that league, so it'll be.
And of course,
I reckon it will boost his coaching as well.
Yeah, and that's for getting the silver medal they won at the Winter Olympics.
That as well.
Although the World Championships after they didn't do so well, but I think this is really awesome for Paul Thompson. I hope he does well. I will definitely be keeping an eye out on the Schweinega Wild Wings in the future. Yep. Maybe we could introduce a new Tomo's Corner. Just to bring in just to see how the team is doing. I mean, it would make sense. He's a
change the corner to just Brits abroad.
Hey, see, we come up with trend-setting ideas here, ladies and gents, on the Icing on the podcast. So, Tomo gone to the DL. Good luck to him. I think it's going to be great for him. Then we move to Ireland for the next piece of information with the news that the Belfast Giants. They're going to be starting their campaign in the Continental Cup semi-finals soon.
Yep.
So, the Belfast Giants are hosting the semi-final stage, which Chris kindly informed me of. So Adam Keefe will lead his team into Group E, hosted at the SSE Arena against... So, these are the teams they're going up against. They're going up against Croatia's Medvesac Zagreb, which when I recorded... Oh, it was two whatever happened 2s ago. It took me about
Pretty sure Panthers played them on the way to winning it, didn't they?
I'm not sure. They might have.
I think they did.
But that whatever happened 2 videos ago, who would it have been? Because I did Rick Nash just recently.
You did Rick Nash that posted last night.
Yeah. What was the one before?
Then,
I really should know this. There might. Oh yeah, Jonathan Chichu. That's it.
Oh, that's the one. Yes, because that was the one you did Premier on.
I did, and Medvezak Zagreb was a team that he played for, and it took me about 5 different takes to actually say that name properly. So that's how I remember that one. Of course, a former KHL team. They're not anymore, obviously. Otherwise, they wouldn't be part of the Continental Cup. But a team with a lot of previous success. And they're also playing against GKS Katowice of Poland. The tournament will take place between Thursday the 15th...
And Written. You missed out Written.
Oh, Written? Oh, it doesn't say them on here. Okay.
Yeah, there's 4 teams in the group.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Here we go. Okay. Yeah, it's just it's saying... I'm reading an article on BelfastGiants.com, and it had their name much later on. So Written Sport as well. So Medvezak Zagreb...
Yeah, Written Sport are the team that Panthers beat in the final game to win the trophy.
Yes. So Medvezak Zagreb, Katowice of Poland, and Written Sport. There you go. They're the 3 teams that they're playing against. The tournament will take place between Thursday the 15th and Saturday the 17th of November at the SSE Arena. I'm not sure. I believe there
they're in... Go on.
There might be a live stream. I'm not quite sure what's going on there.
There might be, yeah, I don't know. And because it's the semi-final, they've only got to finish in the top 2 to qualify for the grand final.
Okay, so yeah, that.
Whereas if they'd have started lower down, like Panthers had to, they would have to have won the group to progress. But then when you get to the semi-final, there's only 2 semi-finals, so the top 2 teams progress rather than just the winner.
Okay, right, I see. So, yes, just make sure you keep an eye out. Ticket information, blah, 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 social media channels for more information. I'm going to be keeping an eye out to see if they have any news on webcasts. I would love to check in and see these games if we get the chance to see them. I assume there'll be a stream somewhere, maybe from one of the other teams.
I would suspect so.
Or yeah, there's going to be a stream somewhere, so I'll keep an eye out for that, which should be good. And hopefully we'll see the Belfast Giants do well. So it's not often we usually talk about the Belfast Giants specifically, or any news with them. Of course, their arena is one of the best in the league. They've hosted NHL games before. They've hosted the World Championships that we took part in a couple of years ago.
Yes.
So they have some. They've done some pretty prestigious.
They had that
events.
Friendship 4 series, didn't they?
Exactly.
As well,
yeah, they have the Friendship 4 series, which I think is coming back this year as
well. It is, yeah. It is, yeah.
So we're going to get to see some NCAA action. Hopefully, there's a stream for that as well, because I'd really like to see how Boston University are doing. So yeah. The Belfast Giants starting the Continental Cup on Thursday. So good luck to them. Hopefully they get the job done and they can go to the Champions Hockey League next year. So the penultimate piece of news for British hockey and the Elite League. This one's more specific to the Elite League. The Cardiff Devils announced a signing this last week after, was it Ben Blood?
Yes.
Ben Blood signed a contract with Tapara, I believe, of the Finnish League.
Swedish, aren't they?
I believe it was. That's a good question.
Anyway, Scandinavia.
So he signed with the better league, essentially. He signed with Tapara for the rest of the season. So that meant that the Cardiff Devils were down a player on their roster. So they decided to bring in a new player for them.
Oh, it is Finland, you're right.
It is Finland. I know what I'm talking about. That's why I'm here. I'm not just a pretty face, you know, guys. So they decided to bring in Evan Mosey. Yes, Evan Mosey has returned to the Elite League for the remainder of the season. However, I think for the first time in quite a while, he's not in the black and gold of the Florida Panthers. It's Nottingham Panthers.
Florida Panthers.
You know what? Shut up. I don't know what's going wrong with me today. I'm falling apart here. Instead... he's gone to the Cardiff Devils. So I've got the article from the Cardiff Devils website on here. So the 29-year-old Evan Mosey joins the Devils after departing for the Herning Blue Fox in Denmark for the start of this season, where he signed in the off-season and played 15 games. Chris, do you by any chance have the stats of how well he did in those 15
would have
games?
if Elite Prospects wasn't being the slowest thing on earth.
Okay, fair enough. Well, we'll see what happens there. I'll keep talking anyway while you try and get him up. Last season, of course, Evan Mosey was with the Nottingham Panthers and he scored 22 goals and 22 assists for 44 points in 55 games, splitting time between forward and defence. Prior to that, he spent a year with the Rockford Ice Hogs in the American Hockey League, which is, of course, the farm team of the NHL Chicago Blackhawks. And Andrew Lauder said, Mosey is one of the fastest skaters we have seen in this league and he can play forward and defence, which is a huge plus. He has an impressive skill set and will fit in well to the style we play in Cardiff. This is a big day for us. Yesterday we lost a great player in Ben Blood and today we signed another great player to fill that void. So, yeah, I think this is going to be fantastic for the Cardiff Devils.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen them they've struggled a little bit on defense this last week or so. He can slot it in the defense and bring a bit of stability to that back end if necessary. If they need a bit of goal scoring, they can send him out on a forward line. So you don't see many other leagues have players be this versatile. Our league is one of them where they have players that can play forward and defense at the standard of the Elite League, because it's slightly lower than some of the other leagues out there. But I think a player like Evan Mosey, who can play either skater position, is incredibly helpful for a coach to be able to
he's had good points production his entire career.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I say so. He's been at, as you said, Hurling Blue Fox so far this season. 3 goals and 6 assists for 9 points in 15 games.
That's not too bad. That's not too bad at all.
Last season with the Panthers, it was 16 and 16 for 32 in 44.
He also had, I mentioned on the article, there was 44 and 55. I think that included Challenge Cup as well.
May well have done. Well, he had 10 in 8 in the Challenge Cup and then 2 in 8 in the Champions Hockey League.
Right, okay.
As well.
He had 2 points in 8 games in the Champions Hockey League.
1 goal, 1 assist.
Wow. Surprised.
Then, of course, he's played for Great Britain as well.
Yep.
That's 9 points in 10 games for Great Britain.
Wow, that's impressive.
So yeah, he's been a good points producer for his entire career, really.
Yeah, and he's pretty much in the prime of his career at the moment, at 29 years old as well. So I think this is a great signing for Cardiff. There have been a lot of rumours at the beginning of the season as to whether Mosey would come to Cardiff, and I think it's finally happened. It's been in the works for quite a while. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to Cardiff's next game in Nottingham, because he'll get a really good reception.
Yes, well, that would be very interesting to see the reception of that, actually. I would assume it would be quite positive, but
I think it'll be a really good one, yeah.
I think there'll be some fans that might be a little bit annoyed that he didn't come back to play for us. I don't know, but I think it's kind of like when NHL players go back to a team they've played with for years and they get a video tribute. Whether he gets a video tribute, I don't know. I don't really know how the EIHL works with that sort of stuff, but they'll definitely get a massive standing ovation from most of the crowd. He's a great player. Like you said, he's been a productive player his entire career. He's been a guy that the teams that he's played for can rely on to put points on the board when needed. And I think it's a great signing for Cardiff. He's a versatile player, like we said. He can help the forwards or the defence, and he's another veteran presence in that locker room that I think Cardiff have been looking for this season, perhaps more than the last few. They obviously want to have a good cohort of British players as well, and I think adding Mosey into that list just strengthens their core of British players much better.
Yeah.
So yeah, Evan Mosey to Cardiff, I think that's pretty great. And then the last piece of news that was announced, I think today, was the Team Great Britain under-20s men's squad. January's IIHF World Championship Division 2 Group A.
Division 2 Group A.
Yep, in Tallinn.
Tallinn. It's the capital of Estonia.
Yes. So they are playing Korea, Lithuania, Romania, and Spain between the 13th to the 19th of January 2019. We'll, of course, talk more about this closer to the time.
Yes.
But the real reason that we're talking about this today is because the roster for that tournament was announced, and some very good names are on that roster, for sure.
Yes, so you've got, some that I'm familiar with, Jordan McLaughlin from the Solway Sharks in the NIHL, sorry. Jordan Griffin from the Steelers, Joe Hazeldine from Telford and the Panthers on that two-way. Kieran Brown, of course, who was with the Steelers and has gone back to Blackburn.
Yep.
Mac Howlett from the Clan, Jordan Kelsall from the Panthers, season-long loan to the Dundee Stars.
Yep.
Liam Kirk, of course, because he still qualifies for the under-20s.
Yeah, he seems very excited to go and play in GB colours again.
Yeah, Richard Crowe from the Guildford Flames, Chad Smith from the Fife Flyers, Josh Waller from the Guildford Flames as well, and then a long list of players on the reserve.
Cade Nielsen as well, Corey Nielsen's son.
Yes, Cade Nielsen from the Yarmouth Mariners. Yeah.
And then,
so it's a very exciting under-20 squad.
Yeah, I think it's going to be awesome. I mean, let's not forget that they won the gold medal last year. So to get up to Division 2 Group A. So, I mean, I'm expecting them to do relatively well. Korea,
what I like seeing as well is that there are players from the NIHL in that squad with players in the Elite League on the reserves.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think... Because, of course, the young players in the league especially British players in the league, they really have to prove themselves before they get regular ice time. It's kind of as if they're finding any excuse. These teams and these coaches and general managers in the Elite League are finding any excuse they can to kind of put them down for another year of seasoning in one of the lower leagues. So the fact that there are so many players that are currently or are on two-way loans with the Elite League, and then of course you've got Kirk who's playing in the OHL abroad. I think there's a really nice list of players there. Some players that might not be getting regular shifts with their Elite League teams, so this is another chance for them to go and play against players their age and hopefully have a bit of progression there as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah.
I would well imagine that this team will be competitive. I mean, it's not like they're going up against Korea, Lithuania, Romania and Spain, like we said. I mean, sure, they're going to be tough opponents for a Great Britain squad, but they're not going to be the Canadas and the US and the Russias, are they? So I expect them to be competitive. Do I expect them to win the gold medal again? I don't know. I mean, we'll have to find out, which I think will be exciting to see. But I think with the kind of calibers of players that we've got here, I think they've got every chance possible to be competitive. And why not? Let's see what happens. Let's do it. So, yes, you can go to Ice Hockey UK and check their news tab if you want to see the full list of all of the players. We, of course, just picked out some interesting or notable names out of that list. So, yes, Great Britain under-20s. And like Max said, hi, Max. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, Max.
Yeah, and there's also a chance for these players to be seen by some talent scouts. So, I mean, let's not forget that Nico Hischier, the #1 pick a couple of seasons ago, it was the World Championships that he really kind of broke out and turned some heads, and then he became the #1 overall pick. So, yeah, I mean, there's anything can happen in the World Championships, and you never know who's watching the World Championships either. So, we move on to our play under review today, our coach's challenge, whatever you want to call it. So, Chris, like we mentioned a little bit earlier, went to the Belfast game in Nottingham.
Yes, the Panthers Belfast game. Aside from the embarrassment of Teddy Bear Toss night.
Yes.
Where Panthers didn't even score.
Because the whole premise of that was it was to raise charity for, was it an autism charity?
Yes,
to raise money for?
So as many of you will know, Teddy Bear Toss is a thing that happens around ice hockey. So you get a teddy bear, you wrap it up in clear plastic or something just to protect it. First goal goes in, everyone chucks the teddy bears on the ice, they get collected up and donated to charity.
Yes, I think it was an autism charity, wasn't it?
Yes, it was Autism East Midlands this year for the Panthers, and the Teddy Bear Toss was on Saturday against the Belfast Giants, and, well, Panthers didn't score. Yeah, they got shut out.
4-0. So
4-0, and it got 8 minutes left in the third period, and the announcement came over the tannoy. Okay, guys, we're going to do the Teddy Bear Toss at the next stoppage in play. So when the next stoppage in play happens, chuck your teddies on the ice, which was met with a load of boos, because that was essentially the scoring table going, yeah, we're not going to score here, are we?
Yeah, I think that was quite obvious, especially given a team that was doing so well in Belfast. I think they should have just done it instead of going like when a team scores, because like we just saw in that event, there is the full potential that the team doesn't score. Just do it at the end of the game.
Well, that's what we were all saying. I mean, I was going, what's the contingency plan? Do we just do it at the end, which would have made more sense?
Yeah, it's like, okay, it's a shame we didn't get the result we wanted. However, guys, let's do this thing for a great cause. Finish the game on a high. Throw the teddy bears. There you go.
Whilst they're all doing their light handshakes down the line and stuff. The other thing,
here, take a teddy bear. You suck.
The other thing that was interesting is that obviously a load of people come on to help clear the teddy bears away.
Such as Max.
Yeah, the Belfast Giants. The Belfast Giants helped to clean the ice, and all the Panthers players just sat on the bench.
Wow. Nice one, Panthers. Great job.
I know that the
real sportsmanship there.
Having that teddy bear toss at a random whistle was enough to make my friend Jono leave early.
Really?
That was the final straw for him, 4-0 down, and just doing it at a random time. I mean, I stayed till the end, but it wasn't pretty at all. I mean, when you're at home and you face double the amount of shots that you make.
I mean, if I travelled 3.5 hours to watch that game, I would not have been happy. Like,
yeah.
To be perfectly honest.
But on the positive side, the Panthers fans did 6,000 teddies for Autism East Midlands.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's like at the end of the day, it's the good cause and the stuff that all of this great stuff that goes towards some kids that might not necessarily get the chance to have this kind of stuff, or to just support a really good local charity that you know that when you're doing something like this, it is going to a good cause and it's directly affecting something. That's the stuff, and I think it was great. So I think.
You see, now this from Max is interesting. All the volunteers couldn't all stay until the end, and they needed all the help. That's why it was early.
Well, the Panthers could have got their bloody asses off the bench and helped, maybe. Just a thought. See, I'm happy to criticise the Panthers when they do something wrong. I always like to. I don't like people to get the idea that because we're primarily Panthers fans that we don't criticise the Panthers. Like, we criticise them more than anyone, I think. Which I think is only fair, right? So, like, you sit on your ass while the Belfast Giants and all the volunteers are picking up the teddies. Get off your ass and do it. You're getting paid to play hockey. It's the least you could do.
I mean, anyway, Max, I think I'm right in all of that, aren't I? Because I didn't see any Panthers players on the ice, but obviously you were there down there, so you might have seen them.
I did see a couple of people tweet about it after the game.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah.
But the interesting... Sorry, go on.
Yes, so the real reason why we're actually talking about this...
is an article in this.
Yes, so...
for Panthers programme.
Some of you that might be watching abroad, and your hockey league might be different, the Elite League games, they always do match day programs. They cost like £1, £2, something like that. £3. It's basically got like some interesting stories, like they do interviews with players. Whenever there's like a seasonal thing like Halloween or Christmas or anything like that, or Easter or something like that, they'll do like interesting stuff. It's just like a little mini magazine for the team that's relevant to that week or the weeks just past. And Chris was telling me about this program, and he saw a very interesting thing written by none other than Gary Moran himself.
Yes,
so
Gary Moran's column in the program. He said that, I mean, I'm starting halfway through it because I'm not going to read the whole thing. But anyway, he says he's not against change. Just look at the progress the Panthers have made on and off the ice over the years. That's true. I mean, Corey started 4-line hockey and all the rest of it.
Exactly.
He says he remembers watching ice hockey when opponents didn't lie on the ice like a Serie B footballer, hoping to get an opponent sent to the bin, only to get up with a grin on their face moments later and not miss a shift.
Yep.
We had a call from a league official a couple of weeks ago asking us to get one of our players to delete a picture of himself off his personal social media account because it showed him having a scrap. This apparently wasn't the image the league official wanted the league to be represented by.
I think it's also important to note a fight in a hockey game.
Yes.
Which is his job. Which is fully legal in the league. Sorry, carry on.
Yes. The fact that the opponent in the picture had asked for the scrap and came off a decided second best played no part in the Panthers office decision to ignore the request. And then he goes on to say that he remembered covering a rugby league match and he was interviewing someone and they said they weren't allowed to talk about fighting even though several thousand people had just watched it. And, you know, it's a similar sort of thing in ice hockey. But the league wanted them to remove an image of a fight because it wasn't how they wanted the league to be represented, and Panthers ignored the decision. Now, I have done a little bit of digging with this.
Interesting, okay. Oh, you see, this is why I get Chris here. He knows all the stats. He's got them already. He does the research. I just
the game in question, I believe, refers to the 7th of October 2018, when the Nottingham Panthers fell by 5-1 to the Milton Keynes Lightning.
Ah, okay, yes, right.
Now, in the first period, there were 2 fights in this game. I believe it's on about the first period, where Milton Keynes Lightning player Nelson Armstrong was given a 10-minute misconduct and a 2-minute minor and a 5-minute major for instigating the fight and then fighting with Robert Farmer.
Right, okay.
Now, I believe that because Moran's saying how the other player really started it and wanted it, I'm guessing that it's either Farmer or Lapine, but I can't find anything on Lapine's social media. So I'm guessing it's Robert Farmer fighting Nelson Armstrong at 11:53 of the first period of that game.
Is the picture? Does Robert Farmer have a picture of him fighting?
I can't find.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't have a chance to properly dig for Farmer's social media.
Sure.
But Lapine definitely hasn't put one on Twitter, so I'm guessing it's the Farmer one. And that, that's just the interesting point of, how are they wanting the league to be, shown, because they're not showing any fighting.
Yeah. So this kind of went into the question of today's play under review, or this week's play under review. The question that I asked was, is the EIHL going soft? And that was more relevant to the first bit that Chris read out from the article about the player getting sticked in the face and then coming up and smiling afterwards. Like, is the league going soft? But I think also what you're bringing up at the moment, Chris, is quite interesting in the sense that, so we've got a situation here of the league obviously wanting to try and put out the best image and the best way it can. Of course, we've got a new media manager in charge. Whether that had anything to do with it, we don't know.
If you look at when the game was early in October, he hadn't started.
True. But has the thing been made in retrospect? Is what I'm.
Well, Moran said it was a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, all right, fair enough. So the interesting thing we have here is, I can understand from the league's perspective that they're like, oh, a player's just put up a picture of them like proper knuckle punching a guy in the face. Maybe, well, that's not going to look very good for us because it makes us look like, oh, the hockey and the EIHL is full of violent thugs that like to fight. Well, ban fighting then.
Then, on the flip side of that, surely, if someone has taken the time to go onto social media, look for a specific player and find the exact picture, they're interested in the league anyway.
Exactly. I just think if you're going to go, oh, you can't have that photo on there, ban fighting. I mean, you wouldn't need to take the photo down if fighting wasn't legal. You can't have your cake and eat it in this scenario. They want to go, you can't have any pictures on there, but you can fight. So only the thousands of people that watch you do it on that night are allowed to see it. I mean, have they not heard of Hockey Fights, the YouTube channel that basically uploads hockey fights? I mean, it does what it says on the tin.
I'm not being funny, but surely it was on the match night highlights as well.
Exactly. Like,
would you not think? I know Panthers normally show the fight.
Yeah, they usually do. And it was a Panther in question, so I would imagine that it was on.
Well, it was away at Milton Keynes, but
True.
Yeah.
Okay. But I think it's very strange. I don't understand why they're getting so up about this, or why they did get so concerned about this.
I'm wondering if, now that the Panthers have gone, well, no, we're not doing that, we're ignoring it, if there's going to be any repercussions down the line.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, is there going to be a fine or something that takes place for like not adhering to the league's code of conduct or rules?
Especially now that it's not been hushed and Moran has come out and said, look, we've ignored the league.
Well, I mean, he's come out and said it in a matchday program, which is one thing. I mean, if he came out and put an official statement on Twitter or something, then it would be different. If he was like, it's more of a punch in the face if it's done on social media. The matchday program, I mean, only a select amount of people are going to read that, let alone buy the program. I mean, I wouldn't have known about this at all if you hadn't have showed me. If you hadn't have gone to that game and bought that matchday program, I would have known nothing about this.
No, I wouldn't either.
So there you go. So I think it's still very much hush-hush. So I think they might be able to get away with it. So
everybody spread this around.
Yeah, spread the news. Get Moran in trouble. It wasn't us. It was Moran. So I think that's very interesting. I don't think they're gonna have anything happen to it. I think it's, you can't have your cake and eat it, I think, is my essential thing. Like, if you don't want players to have photos of them fighting, which is fully legal in the Elite Ice Hockey League, nowhere does it say that fighting is illegal. They don't mind the players potentially punching each other and getting concussions or hurting themselves, but as long as they don't have a photo on it, that's not allowed. Oh, as long as they don't have a photo on their profile of them doing their job and doing what they're paid to do, potentially, if they're being hired as an enforcer, you can't enforce this. You can't enforce it. It's unenforceable. If you ban fighting, then you have a leg to stand on. Then you can go, we've actually banned fighting, you can't have this. Goodbye.
I think, Max makes a good point. He says that Gary Moran's been very clever. And, I mean, like I said, we've been talking about the actual decision. I like this from Gary Moran because, to me, it shows transparency between the club and the fans. And he said, look, this has happened. This is the response. You know, and I like that kind of transparency, to be honest.
I don't think it's... But then again, it goes on to the flip side. Like, I don't think it's as transparent as possible.
No, but it's somewhere.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, it's better than nothing. But then again, he's the owner of one of the most popular and successful hockey franchises in the country. Why should we expect like halfway messages? You know, like I'm not trying to blow this completely out of proportion, but I'm kind of thinking of the precedent that gets set from something like this. At least he's done something. That shouldn't be a precedent that's set. You know, it should be more. He's done what he should have done. I mean, in a scenario like this, I don't think it really matters. In the grand scheme of things, with this specific scenario, it doesn't really matter. But then again, what happens when it's a really important decision? When it's a webcast? Oh, he's done something. Oh, he's put one on. It's better than nothing. As the fans that are willing to pay for a webcast, I'm not trying to bring that in just because I'm annoyed with the fact that we don't have webcasts. But the fact that they put on one webcast, people are like, oh, that's fine. Oh, they're only doing it for sold-out games. That's fine. That's better than nothing. You're one of the most successful. You're one of the most successful hockey teams in British history. You probably bring in one of the largest numbers of revenue of all the teams in the country. We shouldn't have to expect half-assed efforts, because then that sets a bad precedent. Then that means that every team can do that. So that's, of course, going down another rabbit hole, which we could go into forever. But so I want to come back to the initial quote that was made. So Series B football players going down.
I think that's just a random. Well, I mean, that's the second tier Italian league he thought of, but football players in general that dive around, get a free kick and a player booked, and then jump up like nothing's happened. Can you just read out that
section again?
Yep.
Because then we can just have a quick chat about that in more detail.
He says, he also remembers watching ice hockey when opponents didn't lie on the ice like a Serie B footballer, hoping to get an opponent sent to the bin, only to get up with a grin on their face moments later and not miss a single shift.
I think he's got a point.
Yeah.
I think he's got a point. So, Chris, I'm going to ask you, do you think with stuff like this, the league has gotten a little bit softer?
I think potentially. I think there's more, especially in the last few years, there's been much more awareness and concern over things like player health, concussions, that sort of thing. And then you've got that balance of the league have got to try and protect the players, obviously.
Of course.
And then to some people who want hardcore fighting and them punching the living guts out of each other, are they going soft, or are they just trying to protect the players?
Because where I sit with this, I think there's a difference. I think the league are doing pretty much everything they can to protect the players, and I fully respect them for that. Like you just said, player safety is absolutely paramount in a hockey league. If all the players are injured, then there's going to be nobody to watch, and everything completely implodes. Some people will go just to watch one specific player, and if that player is injured, then you've got less likely of a chance. And say if there's a group of players injured and there's a group of fans going to see one specific player, that affects revenue, blah blah blah, etc. etc.
Yeah.
However, I think very much players, and I think this is evident with some of the other leagues in the world. I don't think it's just the EIHL here. Maybe this is more of a question for hockey in general as opposed to just the Elite League. But I think there are a lot of players that do everything they can to try and cheat the system. Like, they get a stick near the face, they immediately go down and pretend they've been high-sticked in the face. Then you don't know whether they've been actually high-sticked or not. Because, for example, the NHL does the rule, if you get high-sticked or slashed, in the face specifically, you get a 2-minute minor for the penalty. If you draw blood, you get a 4-minute double minor.
Yeah, now, I can remember a few years ago, a rugby team that bought, you know, those fake blood capsules?
Yeah, like Halloween stuff.
And they had them in their mouth, and then they could go down in a tackle, bite this capsule, and then go off. And it was a way of keeping the players fresh because they'd have more substitutions.
Luckily,
and they got found out.
We haven't seen an example of that being used in the Elite League.
No, I've not seen an example of that being used in the Elite League.
But, I do think Moran makes a point, like, definitely more nowadays we're seeing players that will feel a stick towards their face, go down and wait for a penalty to be called just to get an easy penalty or an easy power play for their team. And then, like, they get up and grin. I don't think that's the example in quite a lot of situations. But I think there are some examples of players know what they can get away with. Like, you don't get many players that have 0 penalty minutes an entire season. Like, the referees in the league have to do a good job of penalising the players that are penalised. And like I just said, there aren't players that don't go without a penalty. Like, most players, 99% of the players that play in any league are going to be penalised at some point. You've got to make sure it's a fair penalty.
So, I mean, this is probably a topic for another time, but it's something I'll throw out there briefly now. Do you think there should be more categories of penalties? Because you can have a completely accidental one, say like tripping, where you try for a poke check and you just get it wrong, and that's 2 minutes. But equally, you can get 2 minutes for roughing and intentionally, pushing people over and all the rest of it. Yeah. So do you need a difference between accidental penalties such as tripping and intentional ones such as interference, roughing, and all the rest of it?
Or perhaps, and this is just an idea completely off the top of my head, you know how on a power play, when they score, the player comes out of the penalty box, unless it's a 5-minute major penalty that isn't fighting. Say if it's I mean, of course, that very much comes up to the referee's opinion on it, and their sight of it, and like we've known sometimes, the referees, especially in the Elite League, they make some questionable calls, like other leagues, but the EIHL specifically, because we're a more inexperienced league compared to some others. Do they perhaps do a scenario where the accidental penalties, they carry on the power plays like before? So it's a 2 minute, when the team on the power play scores, you bring the player out of the penalty box, power play's over. But for an intentional penalty, it's 2 minutes. But when they score, if they score before the end of the penalty, the player stays in the box until the whole 2 minutes of the penalty's over. That could be a way to do it.
Like Ethan says, the automatic 2+10 for boarding was a good change. Yeah, it was. And I think Max's point about blood substitutions, I wasn't meaning kind of having blood substitutions. What I mean is I hope we don't get to a point where a player bites a blood capsule to try and get an extra 2 minutes power play.
Exactly.
Was the point that I was making.
I've got a question actually regarding that. So, do the Elite League, I should know this, I should absolutely know this, but it escapes me at the moment. Do the Elite League have an embellishment penalty in place?
I suspect they will do, but I've never seen it called.
I think if they do, it needs to be enforced more. If they don't, they need to have one.
I mean, Max also says, there needs to be more explained to the fans. One thing I reckon the league could do to further go forward is to have the same way as when the NHL went to China and stuff, is have a referee microphone for every penalty and what have you, so that everybody knows what it's been called for.
I think what was it? I think it was the Coventry-Sheffield game on Halloween. They had Tom Darnell mic'd up. That was really good. I loved that. The fact that I could actually hear why he was making the calls he was making.
It's not difficult. You have you have a wireless microphone that you turn on and off.
Yeah, well, we've seen an example of it being used in the league already.
Yeah.
So just have the lead referee, if you want, do that the entirety of the thing. I think that would make sense. But so embellishment. Yeah, call embellishment. If a player gets high sticked, or so the referees deem it a high stick, he goes down, the player starts getting to the box, then you've got like the player smiling and grinning as he's going back to the bench. Call him for embellishment. Change the penalty.
Yeah, I mean, Max says it has been called in the past.
Yeah.
So it's in the league. I mean, I've just never seen it.
Or you go down the NHL route and you fine players. Like either they'll get an embellishment penalty, or they'll relook at it and fine them for embellishment.
I think that perhaps the difference there is that the NHL players are earning millions and these guys are earning thousands.
True, but what's the best deterrent is to hit them in the bank account. I'm not saying like £1,000 fine each time. I'm saying like fine them enough so that it hurts them, and they go, maybe I shouldn't try and cheat the system again.
Yeah.
It's like the whole thing with face-offs in the NHL recently. Of course, the NHL and the EIHL are two very different leagues, and there's a lot of stuff different that take place. But if you wanted to try and become competitive, you have to try and learn from the best, you know?
Yeah.
And we've done it in other ways. Why not in these ways? So, is the EIHL going soft? Yeah, maybe. But then again, quite a lot of leagues are in the world. Do I think the embellishment penalty should be called more for situations like the one Moran mentioned in the program? Yes. If you've got an embellishment penalty and it fits under the category, call it. But yeah, that's our little discussion topic for today about the Elite League. So we move on to the news across the pond in the hockey world. Of course, we move to the NHL. And tonight, Elias Pettersson and the Vancouver Canucks are visiting the New York Rangers. I'm looking forward to watching that game. Going to stay up tonight and watch that. It's going to be very good. I can't wait to see Pettersson play. He's a stud. So it's his birthday today as well. He's 20 years old. So the New York Rangers, just before I go into the standings, had a very good week. They had 11 of a possible 12 points in their last 6 games. 7 games, sorry. I think they've got 13 of a possible 14. Because they either went on a 4 or 5 game winning streak, then they lost in overtime to Detroit, then they beat Columbus in a shootout. We are 4-0 in shootouts so far this season. We went from like the bottom of the league to 17th. We're like a couple of points out.
Problem is that you're having to go to a shootout far too often.
But we're getting it done.
Yeah.
So there you go. Anyway, so the league still quite similar in terms of the standings, to be honest. Nashville 26.
Still perfect away.
Yeah, Nashville undefeated. I think they're the only team that's undefeated. Yeah, they're the only team that's undefeated away from home so far this season. Toronto were, but they have taken a loss now. But so Nashville, 26 points. They've won their last 5 straight. They're 8-2-0 in their last 10. They are first in the league with 26 points. Tampa Bay are second with 25. Minnesota with 24 take third. Toronto, Boston, and Vancouver all have 22 points.
Toronto.
Winnipeg, Montreal, Calgary, San Jose all have 21 points. Dallas, Columbus, Buffalo all have 20 points. Colorado, Philadelphia have 19 points. The Islanders and the Rangers have 18 points. 2 weeks ago, if they were up there, I would have been like, that's good. We're 8-7-2 so far this year. We've bounced back and I like it. Pittsburgh, Arizona, Washington, Edmonton, Carolina, Ottawa, and Anaheim all have 17 points. The Detroit Red Wings have 16 points. Florida, St. Louis, and Chicago and Vegas all have 15 points. New Jersey have 13 points. They've lost their last 3. And the LA Kings are still in the bottom of the league with 11 points. They've lost their last 2. They've won 1 game out of 6 away from home. How crazy is that? That's rough. So if we just take a look, the longest winning streak is Nashville, I believe.
Yeah.
The
Florida have won 4 in a row though, down at the bottom.
Yeah, they're starting to find a bit of a groove there. The Chicago Blackhawks, they have the worst losing streak, losing 5 straight. Yep. The Edmonton Oilers have lost 4 straight as well. Yep. New
Jersey lost 3 straight.
Yep, indeed. Philadelphia has won 3 straight.
Minnesota 3 straight.
Yeah, Minnesota 3 straight as well, which will help me with my fantasy, which we'll talk about later.
Not as much as Nashville winning 5 is helping mine.
Nashville. So, those are the standings for the NHL. Yep. More of the same, really. Hopefully the Rangers keep winning games. I doubt we'll win against Vancouver tonight, but I just want to see Pettersson play because I think it's going to be great. Those are the standings. Not really going to go too much into them. Some teams played well, other teams sucked. So, we move on to the next piece of news, and this is regarding Thomas Plekanec. Or Plekanec, I think is how you pronounce it, because it's a Slovakian name? Oh, I can't remember where he's from. That's really annoying now. That's really annoying. I really want to know this. I'm going to have to look. Czech Republic. There you go. It's a Czech name. Plekanec. So, the 36-year-old centre has officially, on the 9th of November, announced his retirement from the National Hockey League. Now, there's a few things that have played into this retirement. However, the 36-year-old centre, legendary for his use of turtlenecks every game, he played 15 seasons in the league, 15 seasons for the Montreal Canadiens. He is retired from the NHL. He was placed. So the reason for his retirement, was he was placed on unconditional waivers by the Montreal Canadiens on Saturday for the purpose of terminating him of his current contract. Just so you know, Plekanec had 1 goal in 3 games this season. He started the season as a healthy scratch. He made his way into the lineup. He had 1 goal in those 3 games, but he has missed the past 9 games due to a back injury. And they decided to want to terminate his contract. Of course, it's a bit of a shame for Plekanec because he's played for Montreal for so long. However, it's a business. Montreal are actually playing relatively well so far this season, so they want to try and keep that going. And of course, Plekanec was one of these victims of the system, essentially. He, other than playing for Montreal, he of course got traded to Toronto during the trade deadline last year, where he played how many games?
17.
He played 17 games with the Maple Leafs. He did relatively okay. He had 4 points.
Only 2 points.
2 goals, 2 assists in 7 playoff games, and 2 assists in 17 regular season games, like you just mentioned. He ranks 7th place in games played in Montreal Canadiens history, which, considering they're the most successful franchise in NHL history, 7th place in games played for the Canadiens is pretty impressive.
His whole career in the NHL, 1,001 games, 608 points. That's a point for his whole career, a point every 2 games. More than that.
Yeah, that's incredibly impressive. And he played 984 of his 1,001 NHL games with the Montreal Canadiens, of course. I think this was very much a situation they wanted to get him to play 1,000 games, get that milestone, get that special night, which he scored. He scored his only goal this season on that night. So then he could get the great milestone of 1,000 games, which not many players do in the league. No. And of course, he was an alternate captain. He was an alternate captain for the team for 8 years. He was drafted 71st overall of the 2001 NHL entry draft, so he was a great player. I no doubt will be making a Whatever Happened To on him at some point in the coming weeks. I think the Hockey News very much made a point that he's going to be one of those underrated guys. He's going to be one of those guys compared to some of the other stars that the Montreal Canadiens have had throughout their however many year history, 100 and something year history. He's going to be one of the guys that kind of gets forgotten a little bit, which I think is a shame because he was a great two-way centre, a great defensively minded player who also put up points on the board, 2 points or a point every 2 games throughout his career, and then a little bit more. So, I think that's really impressive.
Maybe a little bit underrated, but not the most underrated player according to NHL players.
Oh, that is a lovely little transition. So, Plekanec retired. Hopefully he does well. He might find his place on a bench, something like that. However, we move on to the next piece of news, which is, we mentioned last week one of the NHL.com players polls. Another one came out this last week. Last time it was the favourite jersey. This time it was the most underrated player in the league. So this, of course, took place during the NHL European and North American Player Media Tours, and 61 players were asked. Only 56 players this time provided an answer. Very interesting. So, Chris, have you read this?
I read it just before we came on, so I've got everything ready.
Okay, I was just going to ask, just in case you wanted to have just in case you didn't know. So, I was going to see if you could guess. So
I already know.
So the NHL, the players poll, 56 players that were polled on this. And it turns out that the most underrated player in the National Hockey League, according to the players, is Florida Panthers forward Alexander Barkov. Yes, the forward, the 23-year-old center, the captain of the Florida Panthers. He was chosen by 10 of the 56 players, with the Washington Capitals center Nicholas Backstrom finishing second with 8 votes, and Winnipeg Jets forward Blake Wheeler finishing third, earning 3 votes. 7 players earned 2 votes, and 21 more players received 1 vote, and 5 players abstained. And Barkov, well, I mean, to say he's an underrated player, I think is fair. And I think that has to do with playing in the Florida market, a team that hasn't really done so well. In 343 NHL games, he has 259 points, and he joined the Panthers in the 13-14 season. He was a very high draft pick for them, obviously. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, you just gave his stats there. I mean, his stats this season, he's got 13 points. That's 5 goals, and 8 assists.
And that's, of course, bearing in mind he's played on a team that's very much struggled to begin the season.
Yeah, I mean, he's still got a +1 as well. Interesting, some of the other players who got votes. We've mentioned Backstrom and Wheeler. Roman Yossi for the Predators. Fair. Klingberg, Kuznetsov, Malkin, Panarin, Rackle,
Malkin, I can see. Panarin, maybe. I think
Bergeron.
Matt Zuccarello got a vote.
Matt Zuccarello got a vote, yes. Voracek, Trocheck, Christiani.
See, Bergeron getting a vote. I don't get Bergeron. He's not.
I mean, who else? There's Patrick Marleau, Ryan O'Reilly.
Like, Patrice Bergeron has won 1 million Selke trophies. Like, he's not underrated. I just don't understand that. Mikko Rantanen, I can see, he got 2 votes. He's currently leading the entire NHL in points.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, he's still quite a young player. I think this is only his 3rd year in the league or something like that.
Yeah. So same like Patrick Marleau as well. It's like,
I mean, Patrick Marleau, he's slowed down these last few years. Like, I think you could say he's underrated these last few seasons, perhaps. But then again, there are some other ones that I think are better choices. Yeah. Alexander Steen, maybe. Matt Grzelcyk for the Boston Bruins. He probably voted for himself. Jakub Voracek, I could see. Yeah, Vincent Trocheck, I think, is a fair one as well. Mark Stone for the Ottawa Senators. He is basically the Ottawa Senators at this point. Dmitry Orlov, I think, is a fair pick as well. Dmitry Orlov for the Washington Capitals. He's a guy that goes under the radar a little bit. Maybe gained a bit more clout because of their Stanley Cup victory, but he's a guy that could go under the radar quite easily. But yeah, I think that's interesting. I think Barkov, he's a guy that you don't really hear very much about, and the fact that he's put up some solid numbers since he joined the league, and he's steadily improved every year. So I think that's I think that's a great choice.
And Andy says, why not say Granlund from the Wild? Well, we were just reading out what the votes were, Andy. We weren't giving suggestions. But I mean, Granlund from the Wild?
Maybe.
You never really hear much about the Wild, do you, really?
Well, yeah, and I think that kind of goes into it. I mean, you hear about Toronto 95% of the time. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
From players who were underrated to players who definitely are very highly rated.
Yes. Oh, Chris, I'm loving these. You're on your game today, and I like it. So, the 2018 Hockey Hall of Fame induction members. So the next batch of players who are going to, or the next batch of hockey people are being inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. I went to the Hockey Hall of Fame this last summer. A very nice place. I've never taken more pictures in my entire life than I have at the Hockey Hall of Fame. If you ever get the chance to go, anybody that's watching, do it. It's like one of the most amazing things I've ever done. They have some great interactive stuff taking place there as well. The actual Stanley Cup is there, so I don't see why you wouldn't want to go. It's such a fantastic experience. But anyway, the class of 2018 includes some very interesting, some very obvious, and some very interesting choices. So, the group that were inducted this year, this last weekend or so, the man everybody loves to hate in the NHL, Mr. Gary Bettman, our commissioner, he was inducted as a builder category. So the builder category of the thing. So because he helped build the league, at the time of Bettman's hiring, the NHL was comprised of only 24 teams. So of course we've gained another 7 since Gary Bettman joined, and potentially an 8th when Seattle joins in. So that's a big chunk of the league being announced. Of course, we've also had a lockout and a half lockout since he was introduced into the league. So a bit of a controversial figure. I mean, however, I think the net stuff, like if you put the positives and the negatives, it comes out as a net positive. He has done quite a lot in terms of helping the revenue of each of the teams. Some of them, maybe not. Then, of course, we've got a very obvious one in Marty Brodeur, the long-time New Jersey Devils goaltender, the most winningest goaltender in NHL history by quite a margin, I might add. And, of course, he played for the St. Louis Blues as well for those few games.
125 shutouts.
That's ridiculous. Like, that's crazy. So Marty Brodeur, of course, getting a call up. Then we had, for women's hockey, we had Jana Hefford, the player who was, she played the game for almost 20 years. She was the World Championships leading scorer in 1999 and in 2000. She was a 5-time Olympian. She collected a gold medal on 4 different occasions. She collected 7 gold medals at the World Women's Championships.
Yep.
So she's done well.
Well, over her career, 418 games, but 439 goals. A goal a game for her entire career.
That's pretty impressive. I am very impressed with that. So, yeah, women's hockey, of course. I think women's hockey doesn't usually get the rep it deserves.
It's fun to watch, though.
It is very fun to watch. I mean, it's not really that much different from watching any other hockey game, to be honest. So, I think it's great that women's hockey's getting a nod as well. The next member, of course, is Willie O'Ree for the builder category, however, not the player category. Considering his NHL career only consisted of 45 games over 2 seasons. However, he was the first black player to play in the NHL, from what I'm aware of. Yes, yep. I believe so. But all of the community stuff he's done and helping pave the way for other black players in the NHL. Of course, we've got
he's been the diversity ambassador for 20 years. So
exactly, and of course now we've got the likes of PK Subban and Seth Jones and Malcolm Subban. We've got some good black hockey players, players of black descent, who are making an impact in the NHL. And without the likes of Willie O'Ree, we might not have seen that. So I think it's a fantastic thing that he's getting it. And of course, he's tried to do a lot of stuff about do a lot of stuff, like you said, with the community and helping raise awareness for certain things.
Yeah.
So Willie O'Ree gets a call up. Then we have Martin St. Louis. I think this is an obvious choice, Martin St. Louis, for the player category, obviously. He was considered too small to play in the NHL when he joined. Took him several years to crack the NHL. He had stints in the American Hockey League, bouncing between the NHL and AHL. Then he had a short stint with the Calgary Flames. He then moved to Tampa Bay, and he is the franchise's all-time leading scorer. So I think as a 5 foot... Oh, how tall was he? 5'4", I think he was.
Again, though, another player, 1,033 points in 1,134 games. Almost a point a game for his career.
Exactly, almost a point a game for his entire career, and he was told he was too small to play. Like, if that just doesn't show you how fantastic a career he had. I loved watching him as a New York Ranger. I won't forget his playoff goal just after his mum had passed away. Martin St. Louis definitely helped us to that Stanley Cup Finals. I think he was a fantastic player. I loved seeing him as a New York Ranger. He was obviously a Tampa Bay Lightning player, and he will be known as that for the rest of his career. He helped them to Tampa's only Stanley Cup championship in 2004. He won a gold medal. He's part of the Triple Gold Club, so he's doing great. He won the Art Ross Trophy on 2 occasions. He received the Hart Memorial Trophy's League MVP. So, yeah, he's definitely deserving of the honour, I think, as well. And the last one, who I didn't really know too much about until I started looking a little bit into it, was Alexander Yakushev, who was part of the Soviet Union hockey system during the 60s and the 70s, I believe. He is tied for lead in goals with Phil Esposito and Paul Henderson at the 1972 Summit Series, and led the Soviets with 11 points in 8 games. He was a standout on the international stage for over a decade. He was named the Soviets game MVP in 4 of the 8 Summit Series games that he played against Canada. Of course, this was when Soviet hockey was definitely rising, and Yakushev was very much one of those guys. He was inducted into the Russian Hockey Hall of Fame in 1970 and into the EIHL Hockey Hall of Fame in 2003. So this was more of the effect that his career and his sort of standout ability helped Russian hockey players come into the league, and the effect that they've had. I mean, we've literally just seen recently Alexander Ovechkin lift the cup, a Russian captain of an American hockey team, go on to win his first Stanley Cup, and deservedly so. So I think this is a great group of people to be inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, a very good group. As we've said, some obvious choices, some that are probably overdue as well. And yeah, I mean, there aren't really many people in the Hall of Fame that you think shouldn't be there.
Oh, well, some might argue Bettman.
Well, I mean, that's yeah. I mean, I meant kind of throughout the time. But yeah, Bettman in terms of players. I mean, Bettman going into the Hall of Fame. Yeah, okay.
I think maybe once he stopped being commissioner, that might have been more relevant. Like when he stepped down from the job. And
I know. Obviously, the commissioner doesn't make the decisions, but it almost does feel a bit self-indulgent.
It does, yeah. But I think it would have made more sense if Bettman had been inducted once he'd stepped down. Then we could have a look at the entire reign, as it were, of Gary Bettman in the NHL.
Yes.
Because I kind of feel like he's kind of done this halfway through his reign, or halfway through his tenure as the commissioner, and it's kind of like, why didn't you just wait till later?
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, St. Louis, Brodeur, Hefford, O'Ree, Yakushev, I completely agree with those groups. There's a lot of other players that should be inducted. The problem is there's so many good players that just miss out on the Hockey Hall of Fame. I'd love to see one day Pavel Datsyuk get in there. Whether he does or not, I don't think he will, but I'd really like to see him in the Hall of Fame. I think he's deserving of it because he's played very well. And like Andy mentions in the chat, there's a big ongoing concussion lawsuit taking place, which I hope to talk about in more detail next week, during next week's episode, because we're waiting on a few further details with that. Essentially, the league have said, I don't quote me on this because I only briefly read it, but essentially they're not claiming any responsibility for the concussions, but they're going to try and help how much they can or something like that. Oh, excuse me. So we'll go into more detail about that next week, because that's a very big topic to discuss, and I don't think we'd do it justice like as a topic.
In the time we've got left.
Exactly. So now we move on to some of the more interesting, heartwarming, if you want to put it, stories that have taken place news in the NHL. Yes, bits. These are the sort of stuff that you might not necessarily see on other podcasts, which we like to pride ourselves on. So there was a raffle. So for some of you that don't know, there was a event that took place on the 27th of October in Pittsburgh. There was a shooting at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh on October 27th, and many people lost their lives. Many people were injured as a part of it. Pittsburgh came out with a special patch shaped like the Jewish Star of David, because of course synagogue is for the religion of Judaism, and they had the slogan "Stronger than Hate," which I think is very telling. So the Capitals, the next game they played against Pittsburgh, I believe it was the day after, something like that. They held a raffle, and all of the proceeds were going to the victims and charities that will help these victims. They managed to raise almost $20,000 from that raffle, which is awesome. And all of the jerseys that were worn that night in that game by the Pittsburgh Penguins are being auctioned off, and they look like they're making a decent amount of money on that as well. So I just thought it would be a nice thing to bring up, that whilst we do have these awful tragedies that take place in the world that might not necessarily be hockey related, hockey is a family. Hockey is a group of like-minded people coming together to celebrate not just your favourite team, but your favourite sport with other people from around the world. Like some of my best friends at the moment I've met through hockey or through this YouTube channel one way or another. So I definitely think that this is a worthy thing. And the fact that the Capitals as well, like when they're on the ice, these two teams hate each other. But it just goes to show that some things are more important than rivalry, some things are more important than hockey, and I think this is a really good thing, and they're going to raise some money to some people that could really do with it. Because in a situation like this, the last thing you think about is how you're going to be affected financially from like having a loved one get killed in a shooting or something like that. So for other people to go, look, we'll help you out, you don't have to worry about that, you just focus on what you need to think about, I think is incredibly important. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, it's things such as this. I mean, as you've said with the hockey community, you know, we all love the sport. We all, you know, think about it daily and discuss it all the time, particularly you and I.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah, really all the time.
24/7.
But it is just a sport.
Yeah.
And there are many more things in life that are far more important.
Definitely.
And I mean, this just brings it, you know, back into, you know, makes you think what is important in life, because you know you do only get one.
Yeah.
And it's great the hockey community is coming together. I mean, it always does. Sporting communities do, and it's a really great and lovely story out of something that's so horrible.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, money continuing to be raised for the for this entire situation. There were raffle tickets that you could buy a season ticket holder spent $100. One specific season ticket holder spent $100 on this raffle to help raise money, which I think is awesome. Because fans don't have to do that stuff. Like, they don't have to buy the raffle tickets if they don't want to. They've already paid probably a huge amount of money just to see the team play. Like, NHL games, especially a Capitals-Pittsburgh game at this point in time, is going to be a prime time price. Like, most arenas will vary their prices depending on who the opponent is, but two teams that hate each other like this, that would not be a cheap game to go to. So the fact that some people are willing to put in loads of money with the charity stuff, I think is awesome. So I thought it was something that I saw during the week, something that I thought would be good to talk about. Now we move on to something a little bit more lighthearted, something a little bit funnier to finish off the NHL news and everything that's taken place.
Something that shows how potentially drunk some Americans were when
and how much people like to troll the election system. So,
is that so?
For those of you who don't know, of course, because I follow lots of American, follow the NHL, follow American sports and American YouTubers and things like that, like 5 Points and things, for example. It was election week this last week. I saw about 1 million posts about people telling other people to vote and other people saying that they don't care about voting, so stop telling me to vote, and a lot of people saying you can vote but we don't care who you vote for, and all of that stuff. So something interesting took place in the Camden County election. This was a county of New Jersey, I believe. So, like you go into the voting booth, you have your different people to choose from. Well, it turns out that a most recent mascot in the NHL picked himself up a few votes. So Gritty, the Philadelphia Flyers' new mascot, the Muppet on a cocaine addiction mascot, the very popular and very viral mascot for the Philadelphia Flyers, managed to gain 14 votes in Camden County, New Jersey on election day. According to go for it.
Do you reckon people went into the voting poll meaning to vote for Trump and accidentally went for the wrong orange hairy thing?
Well, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. They do look very similar. So, according to the write-in voting records, Gritty got 2 votes apiece for Camden County Sheriff and the seat in the House of Representatives 1st District. Could you imagine Gritty as the Sheriff of Camden County? How great would that be? I want to see a spin-off series, like Gritty Sheriff or Gritty PD.
Gritty does jobs around Philadelphia.
Yeah, I would love that.
Gritty the bin man.
The other 10 votes were cast by pranksters, and they were scattered among different Board of Education seats. Oh my God, in charge of the Board of Education for New Jersey.
Can you imagine Gritty as a teacher? It would terrify kids.
Yeah, it really would. While Gritty, so the NHL said, while Gritty continues to do great work in the community, it doesn't seem likely that the lovable mascot will be retiring from his current post to pursue public office anytime soon.
Really? You don't say.
Right, I want to start next year. I want to start a new a trending hashtag on Twitter. Hashtag get Gritty elected. I think it could go viral. I think we're onto something here, guys.
What do you reckon the Democratic nomination for president is Gritty?
Could you imagine Trump versus Gritty? That would be a great matchup. I would vote for Gritty.
Which orange hairy thing do I vote for?
You'd be like, which one's which? I'm so confused. That would be great.
That's just such a flaw in the American system, is now Trump can't do anything for 2 years.
Yeah, I know, right? So, there you go. So, Gritty got voted by 14 different people. I thought it was a great story. We had to talk about it.
Well done, 14 people.
Well done. And well done, Gritty. You've done it. You've made it. You're going to be a sheriff in no time. So, we move on to the tail end of the podcast. We're on to the third
Kirk's Corner.
Kirk's Corner. Every time you do that, I want to say robots in disguise. You know? But, so, Liam Kirk played some more games for the Peterborough Petes of the Ontario Hockey League this week. And he picked up another point, which is pretty good. So he's got, 3 points in his last 4 games, something like that.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. So he added another assist last week, so he now has 7 points in 20 OHL games. It's not exactly the pace that he was scoring at to begin this season, where he's going 3 points in 2 games, but there is still plenty of time for him to patch those stats and get hot, and maybe after New Year he's finally felt comfortable where he is, and everything, both on the ice and off the ice, is going very well. So, yeah, hopefully he does well.
3 games this week.
Really? Who are they against?
3 games this week. On Friday, they're at home to the Owen Sound Attack.
Okay.
Saturday, away to the London Knights.
Oh,
and
the
Sunday,
London Knights, that's going to be a tough one.
And Sunday, away to the Sarnia Sting.
Ah, Sarnia Sting. Is that... I think that's Connor McDavid's old team, isn't it? Sarnia?
May well be, yes.
I believe it is. So yeah, that's Kirk's Corner. Kirk's Corner, robots in disguise. So yeah, we might make it into what did you call it earlier? Brits Abroad.
Brits Abroad, yeah.
I think we might do that with Tomo. I think that would be a good idea. Let us know what you think in the chat. We might do that if you guys want it. If not, we'll just talk about Tomo in a different section. So anyway, Fantasy League. So one guy's decided to start taking Fantasy League way too seriously.
What?
And he messaged me every day this week saying how much he was enjoying beating me in Fantasy League. So Chris is now dancing. I'm going to bring up the fantasy score so you can't see it anymore.
I seem to remember last week's podcast, I was repeatedly told that I was going to be brought down a peg.
But you do know what happened. Like, every single player on your team scored 1 billion hat-tricks every game.
Yeah, I know.
And for my team, the problem was half of them bloody went on injured reserve. So it was a bit of an unfair fight. I'm quite happy with the number of points I put up. In every single other bracket, in every single other matchup, that would have been good enough to win.
Yeah.
So I'm quite happy with the production that I made. So anyway, here are the scores from last week. So Chris cheated his way to victory.
Stanley... come on.
Stanley Yelnats beat the Toronto Thunderbirds 82-77. The Beanheads beat the Nottingham Yeet 91-80. The Nottingham Redhawks beat Clarkies Infants 51-26. Those two guys really aren't paying attention. Then we had, this was a good one. The Shaw Billionaires against the Duncan PlayStation 79-76. The Portsmouth Pirates against Hab Suck Dunno, 75-64 in Portsmouth's favour. The Pyongyang Sucklords, love it, against Trump's fake wife, 79-70. And the Croatian Jets against Max's Nottingham Outlaws, 93-62.
But that's what I meant about our week. And if you were playing anybody else, you'd have won.
Yeah, exactly.
But somehow I got 132.
Yeah, because you had like 3 players score a hat-trick this week. It's not fair, man. And then you had Rene going on like a 6-game winning streak.
The 1 week.
Bloody hacks, man. Anyway, for this week coming up, so it starts today, I'm up against the Shaw Billionaires, which should be a very good matchup. The Beanheads are against the Duncan PlayStations. Chris is going to go 7-0. The Nottingham Redhawks are against the Pyongyang Sucklords.
That's harsh against Clarkie's Infants.
It's not though, is it? They're 2-4, mate. They're 2-4.
They got what, 26 points last week?
Yeah, pretty much. Hab Suck against the Toronto Thunderbirds. Trump's fake wife against Stanley Yelnats. The Croatian Jets against the Nottingham Yeet. And the Nottingham Outlaws against the Denver Sports team who were on a bye week last week.
Yep.
So that'll be very interesting to see as well. So those are your fantasy sports. Make sure you sort out your lineups, folks.
Yep, I'm doing that once we've
did mine earlier today.
Finished. Yeah, I'm doing mine once we finish this.
I got rid of Joel Armia, Philip Heatle, and somebody else, and Sven Bertsky, and I picked up Jake Virtanen, who's scored 7 goals this season, finally living up to his potential. Jimmy Vesey scored 6 goals this season. Excuse me, to replace Philip Heatle. Sorry, I can't help it. I'm drinking Pepsi. And I also picked up Bobby Ryan, because he's actually had a decent play in this season, to replace Joel Armia, because Armia and Betsky were both on injured reserve as well. So, there you go. So there's all of the topics we wanted to talk about. It's time for last call.
Last call.
Questions.
You've got like a minute or two to get your questions in. That's what I'm saying. Andy and Max look as though they're planning a rival podcast.
Yeah, there's a mutiny taking place in our chat. I will make you two walk the plank. I will do it. And then you'll get eaten by...
He's had plenty of practice on Red Dead Redemption. He'll just come round and
Dude, that game is so good. Red Dead Redemption is the best. Guys, like, legit, I'm in the epilogue, the second chapter, like, the final chapter of Red Dead Redemption 2. And it's honestly one of the best games I have ever played in my entire life.
This is why he's not uploading NHL 19 videos.
Well, no, because nobody watches them. But, like, literally, I was having a decent week this last week. I was like, my alternate hockey history. Got copyright stricken, but yeah, great, it's getting loads of views. This one, loads of views. NHL 19, less than 100. Both of them. Less than 5% of my viewership, of my subscriber base, have watched those 2 videos.
Yeah, okay.
I was like, oh, that's not helpful. And then I uploaded Rick Nash yesterday, and that's done very well so far, so I'm very happy with that. Yeah, it's done very well.
Yeah, I watched it at lunchtime.
Good. Did you like it?
Well, I got a bit distracted sending you video ideas and talking about the podcast tonight, so I only really paid attention to the first half.
Oh, fair enough. I mean,
I've got the second half to...
Yeah, fair. Just watch the end of it. I mean, you pretty much know what happened other than that. One thing I should mention, alternate hockey history. I would like to know what you guys think about that. I didn't really get people watched it, which was great. I didn't really get a huge amount of response. I'd also like to know if you guys actually knew that I put it up. And the reason I ask is because I try to make it a lot more professional and a lot more well made than some of my other uploads that I make on this channel, because I do them all myself and I suck at editing. And I want to know what you guys thought about that. But either let me know here on Twitter, or message on YouTube, or go into the comments of the video, because I got a copyright strike for that, or I couldn't monetize the video due to using the Miracle on Ice footage that's 30 years old and was monetized from the place that I got it, and they decided that I couldn't monetize it, even though I was adding my own commentary and it actually fits under YouTube's fair use policy. But there you go. So I don't know if any, I don't know. I would assume that because it's not monetized and it had that, it might not have reached as many people as possible, because I was really looking forward to uploading that video.
I watched it, obviously, on the premiere with you. And, I mean, I didn't talk much during it because I didn't want to miss anything of what you were saying.
Yeah, of course.
So,
I'm thinking post, because, I mean, it's got a couple of hundred views on it.
No, it was interesting, yeah.
Because I've got a new one lined up, which I think is going to be quite a good one. Pretty much written the script for. I'm going to get it out by the end of the... Yeah, 212 views so far in 5 days.
Nice.
I'm quite happy with, considering it's a new series, and I definitely want to carry it on, because I've got a list of 7 different ideas I want to look at for this series. But yeah, I'm just interested to see if you guys didn't know it existed, that would answer a few questions for me. We had nothing else to put on it, and it was not like anything else anyone said. Yeah, exactly. It's a 30-year-old game at this point, a 38-year-old clip, and I took it from YouTube. I took it from another YouTube video. I took the YouTube video of the Miracle on Ice game, cut it up, edited it so it fitted with my video, put the link to the video in my description, and said it came from this place specifically, and the International Olympic Committee still copyrighted the video, which is great. Which I really like. Oh, and in other news, it's 2 weeks until I go to Zurich. Yeah.
Yes, well, we are going to have a week break from the podcast.
Yeah, we're going to figure out what's going on there.
We'll figure something out.
We might have to take a week off because of situations. We'll keep you updated with what's going on there. But essentially, 2 weeks today, I'll probably be in the Hallenstadion at this point, because they're an hour ahead. The game will be almost ending, I think. I'm going to Zurich to watch the KHL World game between SK St. Petersburg, who won today against Avto Mobilist, and Dynamo Riga, which I think is going to be really awesome. I'm hoping to see a bit of Pavel Datsuk play. Hopefully he stays healthy until then. It's going to be good. I'm so excited. And it's the home of the Zurich Lions as well, so it's going to be a great arena.
I love this mutiny still going on. Max is saying that him and Andy will take over for that week.
Max, if you want to be invited to the podcast again, I've got my eye on you, bud. I've got my eye on you. Dear. I think we'll end it there. Aren't really many other questions coming in. So, thank you very much for watching the 10th episode of the Icing on the Skate podcast. We're doing well here, Chris.
We are.
We will be back next week, I believe, to talk more. It'll be the 19th of November. The
end of the Belfast semi-final. Hopefully they get through.
Okay, yeah, so that'll be something to talk about. So yes, I will, we'll see you again. I've got some videos to upload this week. Hopefully you watch them. If you don't, fair enough. Oh, Black Friday's coming up soon as well. That's
nice.
Weeks, I think. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed it, but we'll see you again soon. Bye.